Ladies and gentlemen, the goal in your life is not to figure out how to be comfortable in your mental prisons, but to realize that you have the keys to set yourself free. Hey everybody, welcome to How to Be Mesmerizing. It's Tim Shurr, and today we have another spectacular guest with us. Shep Hyken is with us. Shep, welcome to the program.
Great to be here, and I'm already mesmerized.
Well, I appreciate you being here, Shep. Now, for those of you who may not know, Shep is a global authority on customer service. This guy knows what he's doing when he talks about taking people and taking your customers and turning them into loyal fans. He's written a book on it. He has a TV show on it. He's in the Speakers Hall of Fame. This guy's traveled all over the world. He is an authority on customer service. So, Shep, we're going to dive into that brilliant mind of yours, and I'm excited to learn from you. So, what would you say is the secret to success?
I'll go give you one word. How's that? Relationships.
Yes. Good word. Yeah. So tell me about that.
Why is I've covered myself both personally and professionally.
Perfect. So tell me, why is it all about relationships?
Well, I mean, if we stay in the customer service experience lane, it's the relationship that any business has with a customer. The goal is to create confidence, to ultimately create trust. Trust means there's some type of an emotional connection. And when you have trust, people want to be around. There's an old saying, people want to be around people they know, like, and trust. When people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. By the way, the knowing the liking is easy. It's the trust part that's pretty hard. And so even, if I think back to my personal relationships, I remember my first date with my, wife. I've been married to now for, like 30 years. We had a great date. And I mean, it was easy to kind of know her real quickly, and maybe I like her, but when do you start to trust somebody? And when do you start to trust somebody that you're willing to say, hey, I want to spend the rest of my life with you? So imagine that you are dealing with your customers, and could you possibly get a customer to say, you know what, this is somebody I'm willing to spend the rest of my life with doing business. Yeah. So I've never really talked about it from this perspective. Maybe I need to write an article on this. This is good.
So all right. Well, let's develop the content right here then. So
I'm going to write this down. Yeah.
So if you are going to court a customer, right, and with the end result in mind of, I want this customer for life, right? You've heard of the expression lifetime value of a customer. Mm-hmm. Yep. And in order to have that, you have to develop trust. So how do we start developing that long-term trust to get a client who wants to be with us for the rest of our working life?
Yeah. And by the way, lifetime value of the customer, it's an interesting phrase, because most of the time, the average lifetime value of a customer is based on customers who leave early and customers who stay late. Okay. In other words, who may buy once or twice, and then others that may buy 50 times. And when you start to understand the average lifetime value of a customer and what each average customer is worth, it really shouldn't matter whether they're, a customer that doesn't do much business with you or somebody that does a lot of business with you, because you start to treat them all a certain way to try to extend the life of that customer. So well now, back to your original question, which was...
how do you develop the trust?
How do you develop the trust? So I wrote this book about maybe a dozen or so years ago, which just recently is released again this year, called Cult of the Customer, where the 5 cults take you from uncertainty to getting into alignment with the company you're doing business with, to experiencing what they're all about, then to owning that experience. In other words, and this is what gets to the trust part. And if that owned experience is positive, then you're in amazement. Those are the 5 culture phases. So let's talk about that ownership, which is the fourth one. You want people to own the experience they have with you so that everybody would know exactly what they're going to get. They trust that it's going to happen. And I call it ownership in a simple way. As an example that I use is if you bought a home or moved into an apartment or whatever, the first few nights, maybe even few weeks, if you don't know where the light switches are on the wall, okay? But come a few weeks later, you can close your eyes, walk into a room, and you know exactly which side it's on. I mean, it's like you now own that experience. You can find the light switch in the dark, okay? That's because you're confident, it's been consistent, it's all that light switch is always in the same spot every time. And you know when you flip it up, the light's going to go on, unless you burnt out bulb, of course. But you get what I'm talking about. So that's an owned experience. You move from really great uncertainty, about where to go. That's alignment. Now you're living here for a few weeks. Yeah, it's still there. It's still there. Now I can close. Like I know when I get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, I can close my eyes and I can make my way around the bed, through the door, down the hall, into the bathroom, make a left, make another left, and there I am. And I don't have to worry about bumping into anything, unless my wife's left the laundry sitting, and then I'm in trouble.
Yes.
But you get the idea. That's what an owned experience is. And when a company can create an experience that is consistent and predictable and always above average, your customers will say things like, they're always so knowledgeable. They're always getting back to me quickly. They always followed by something positive. That's trust. That's what counts.
That's really good. So 2 key things there. One, building certainty. So they know that you're going to be there and they can trust you that if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And just like the light switch is always on the wall, always in the same spot. And, there might be obstacles that get in the way, but that light switch is always there. And if they know that you're the same way and they can count on you, that level of certainty is huge.
And here's the neat thing is that nobody and no company is perfect. So what you do is recognize that and create a system that allows for, a response to imperfection. That, if somebody's got this complaint that happened to them, obviously, it drives me crazy when I say, well, how often when I'm talking to a client, they tell me about the number one complaint they have. Well, how often does this happen? And they say, oh, it happens all the time. I go, why is it happening all the time? It's going to happen again and again and again. What can you do to at least eliminate it, if not mitigate it, and reduce the number of times? But even, the fancy hotels, when there's a problem, they've got a system in place. They've got properly trained people, and they know how to respond. And I believe that when you take these moments of misery, these negative issues, anything that happens that isn't right, and you fix it the right way, you actually restore confidence to a higher level than if the problem had never happened at all.
Yeah. Because that's when you get to shine, not when things are going well, but when things aren't going well and how you handle it and how you respond to it.
Yep. It's easy to catch fish when they jump in the boat. That's not catching.
That's funny. I like that one.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. And to get them on the line, then you got to get them into the boat, and that requires finesse. I've trained a lot of salespeople over the years, and was always fascinated and also shocked when so many of them would say, oh, I hate to call back somebody if there's a problem because I feel bad that I let them down or that this happened. And so I'm just kind of not calling them back. And I'm like, so there's a problem. And instead of looking at it as an opportunity to create a really loyal fan, you're blowing them off. And they're like, well, yeah, I guess I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah. So, you miss an opportunity. Whenever I probably go overboard and probably talk too much. I'm guilty of that because I'm a people pleaser, and I want to make sure that the person understands if there's a problem, I want to be there to help them out. I had a client book me at the very beginning of this whole pandemic thing for a virtual presentation, and she says, well, I've never done one before. I don't know how this is going to go. I'm very uncomfortable. I really don't like Zoom calls, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing, I should have seen that as the warning sign that nothing I could do that's really, really good is going to work that day. And by the way, I was right. I have emails from people in the audience saying, thank you, this was great, man, you nailed it, blah, blah, blah. But when I talked to her in a debrief, she goes, I guess I was expecting something different. I don't know what it could have been, but I felt so bad that she, even though it was probably a great presentation, and that she says to me, as I go, oh, it's obvious I didn't make you happy. She goes, I don't know if anybody would have made me happy. She says, and you also probably ought to know, I actually just came from the dentist where I had a root canal. Oh, no wonder you aren't happy.
My gosh.
And I can't make this up. This is exactly what happened. But the point is, I said, it's not, to me, it's not all about the money. I want you to be happy. I want you to feel you got tremendous value from me. I want you to be able to say to your friends, your colleagues, that you got to use this guy. We're not there. So what do I need to do to get you there? Do you want me to come back and do another presentation? She goes, if I don't have to sit through another one of these virtual presentations again, I'd be happy. And I got news for you. Unfortunately, that's exactly what she has to do. This was early in going into virtual. So, but I'm sure she's more comfortable with it now. But I even said, I'm happy to give you your money back. I mean, I don't think I got the money yet, but I'm happy to tell her no charge. She says, no, that's not it at all. I just don't think this is what I want. So nothing I could do would turn around. But I'm the kind of person that's our goal. I realize you can't turn everybody back around. But if there's somebody that has a problem, we need to go in. We need to, number one, acknowledge it, apologize, discuss what the resolution is going to be, take complete ownership of it. And then when we figure out what it's all about, act quickly to get to a point where everybody's happy again. And so that's my 5-step process for dealing with little problems, for dealing with crisis situations, anything that happens like that.
That's so interesting that you just said that, because I literally just wrote that down. Shep's 5-step trust process. Number one, certainty. They got to know that you're going to show up and you're going to deliver, on your word. 2, you got to be above average when you are providing service, whether it's your customer service or how you connect with them, or understanding what their expectations are. Number 3, a response to imperfection, which I really enjoy how you phrase that, right? We got to eliminate or mitigate it, or realize if there's a problem, and there's always going to be some challenge. It's how you show up to it that actually makes trust stronger. Number 4, adjust expectations, right? So you want to make sure that you guys have what I call a well-formed outcome. So we know exactly what they want, how they want to feel, what they're expecting, so that you can customize and deliver based on what they need. And because a lot of times people are not clear on what they want. They're very clear on what they don't want, but they really don't know what they do want, which makes it hard for them to get it. Yeah. So you could have walked on water that day and she would have went, That's
exactly what happened. I don't think I could have done any better than I did that day.
Yeah.
It was so spot on. Yeah. And even interestingly, one of the people who was in the audience was a relative of her. They worked together, family member, family business.
Yeah.
And he kept drilling me with really good questions, and it just made for an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
And he goes, thanks, this has been great, And I'm thinking, I walked away, as best you can from a virtual presentation, thinking if that was in person, I probably might have gotten a standing ovation,
Yeah. Yeah.
But beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And recognizing that, we just have to all know. And by the way, did you get to the 5th one? Because you got number 4.
Yeah.
Number 5 was.
Yeah. Number 5 is, I call it planting seeds. Right? Planting seeds, because what you did was you were saying things. I want you to feel happy. I want you to feel confident. I want you to feel good about this. Right. And it's the words that you're using that are influencing their emotional state. If you're not paying attention to the words you're using, you might say things like, well, I don't want you to be miserable or frustrated or sad at the end. Those are ideas and words you don't want to plant into their mind. So happy, confident, feeling good. What can I do? What would be a home run for you? What was the best thing you had before?
Right. Great questions. And believe it or not, in the sales process, and you mentioned you do a lot with salespeople, one of the questions that we like to do, I call it the magic question, and I adapted it from Dan Sullivan, the strategic coach. Dan, I've been going to his programs for more than 20 years now, and I'm a firm believer of this question. He talks about success if you were to look into the future. So I like to talk to my clients in the beginning. If we were to get, as we're starting to look at, are you going to hire me to speak at your event? Are you going to book one of our trainers? Whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to get together a year from now, what would have to happen for you to call this project a success? What would have to happen for you to say that this was the best investment I made into a speaker at our meeting? So it's what I'm trying to do is two things. Number one, it's a little subliminal, but I want them to picture me in their life a year from now.
Yeah.
Okay. And with your background, you probably understand exactly what that's doing is I'm putting this picture in. But
Mm-hmm.
number two, and this is the biggest, most important thing, I don't necessarily need to get the answer at that moment, but oftentimes the client will share that answer with me. And
Mm-hmm.
what that does is it puts me in a position of knowing what success criteria means to them.
Mm-hmm.
So they can tell me, and by the way, if they say, hey, I just want people, I would love it if they were still talking about you a year from now. Okay, what would you like them to be saying? Let's get a little deeper, and then if they don't know what they want, I'll help them. It's like, I talk about this concept. I already kind of mentioned the moment of misery, moment of magic thing, the positive experience versus the bad. And I said, I would love to see your people, if I share this concept, that they're using that line. And like, I just created another moment of magic for a client today or a customer or whomever. And he goes, yeah. How do we get them to do that? And I tell them, and you know what? We're on our way to working together at that moment.
Yeah.
Because they gave me success criteria. By the way, another thing that I like to do when I'm finished with this conversation is I take notes, just as you're taking notes now, and then I will rehash that. But what you did, Tim, was really cool. You put your spin on this. This is how I'm interpreting you. But if you're in a sales situation, you can do that. But I also like to throw back the exact phrases and words that they used to make them know that I heard exactly what they said.
Yes, that is vital, and it's a good catch. And when you're in that situation, when you're feeding back the exact words, it creates that feeling of rapport. Oh, he really gets me, or she really understands where I'm coming from, and there's that connection. And so, yes, exactly right. So, yeah, very good, very good. I love that, Shep. A moment of magic. And you could go through the day creating moments of magic for people.
Yeah. So we have an exercise. We just had our, today, first day of the week, or first day that I'm in town that week, if I happen to be traveling.
Mm-hmm.
We have our team meeting, and the opening of each one of our presentations is, this is my moment of magic from last week. And they share a time that they created a positive experience for either a colleague or one of our clients.
Nice.
It's a great exercise. It takes 10, 20 seconds for them to share the moment of magic. Very good. Some of them we laugh at. Some, my assistant today, she referred to, there's a gentleman that struggles with the English language. He lives over in Europe, and he tries to write. It's very funny. He says, you did a good things for me. He put a S on the end of it, and
yes.
She read it exactly as is, which makes us all smile because we know him well. He's a great guy, and he's trying so hard. He admits his shortcoming with, the ability. He says, I can think fluently. I can't speak it fluently.
Yeah. Which even makes him even more endearing.
Yeah, I think so.
He's trying.
More human. Yes, no doubt.
Yeah, more human. That's for sure. I like that a lot. So that's very good. So for everybody that's listening right now, just what Shep said about, going into your team meetings and starting off the day. I've seen this many, many times with teams where they start off with a question like that, and it sets the day, sets the tone. And I've heard it described in many different ways, the questions that people will ask, but I love that one.
And by the way,
moment of magic.
Right. So that's an exercise that we teach in our training. And but there's 100, maybe there's not 100, but there's a lot of ways to use this question. So one is, give me an example of when you created that moment of magic for someone else. And by the way, I want that example, I want that question to be used more than any other, because it makes the person say, I did this, because we want them to become service aware. But because some clients, they'll say, just recognize somebody else doing it. Well, that's a cop-out. That means that they can't be forced to do it themselves.
Right.
But once in a while, it's like, hey, next week, let's do things a little different. I want you to recognize when somebody else is creating that moment of magic. I want you to tell me about a complaint that you turned around and made right. And by the way, it doesn't have to be a major complaint. It could be, I want you to tell me about not a complaint, but a problem that somebody had that you resolve for them, because, if somebody, like in customer service, oftentimes you're not presented with a complaint. Somebody just has a question. And when they're finished, they're happy that you had the answer.
Yeah.
So that didn't start out to be anything negative. It's just, hey, can you help me? Sure, I can. In my speech and even in my books, oftentimes I have like 5 ways to do this and 10 ways to do that. Mm-hmm. And what you can do is take one of those ways and you can say, here's a really cool concept. Give me next week, between now and next week, come up with an example of how you use this concept. And it has to be no more than 3 sentences long. It's got to fit on I actually have these index cards with me because I use them on occasion. It has to fit on a 3x5 index card, or it's too much. You can't write a small novel about this. It's got to be realistic. So I have a book called Be Amazing or Go Home, and there's 52 tools in that book. And you can take each one of these tools, and I believe all 52 are appropriate for any company, but even if they disagree with a few of them, so maybe there's 35 or 40, but each week take one of the tools and say, hey, here's an idea, here's a tool, and it's just a customer service suggestion. Give me an example of how you use that. That's how it works. That's how you get people to become service aware. That's how you create the culture change, is to constantly put it in front of people and make them think about it.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And it's an awesome book. And
thank you.
Yeah. So you're welcome. So one of the big mistakes or assumptions that a lot of leadership teams make is they think their people are already doing this. And most are not, right? If you listen to the recorded calls, you would think that it would be obvious to be nice, be friendly, to solve a problem, to, instead of just transferring someone, to make sure they got transferred, to see if there's some way that you can help them a little bit farther instead of just sending them off, asking them how their day is, apologizing if something went wrong. Simple little things that you and I might take for granted because we've been doing this for so long. But what's common sense isn't common. Right. And so many people are missing out to even take one of your ideas, just one of the nuggets. And you've already shared about 10 golden nuggets in our short conversation. To take any one of them and start implementing them would be transformational for any corporate culture. So, and also for your marriage. And
well, that's the whole point. I think that all of these, remember at the beginning of our conversation, you said, what's the secret to success?
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, is he talking? Does he want me to go down the business side? But the one word, it's relationships. And, if you treated your spouse or partner or closest friend like you treated your best customer, think about that, and then, and it goes the other way around too. I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but it's like, if I locked my wife in the trunk of my car on a hot summer day, and I open it up an hour later, what do you think she'd want to do to me?
But you in that trunk.
Exactly. That would be a nice way of saying it. But if I put my dog in the trunk, an hour later, open it up, that dog is so happy to see me. I don't know if that makes sense or not. There's something there, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but I'm pretty sure that
I've read books on that, where if we could be more like our dogs.
Yeah.
Right. Where they have that unconditional love, where they just care for you and they just show up, and their short and long-term memories, very small, because they're just in the moment, happy to see you. And, if we could all inspire to be that way, and we would have more of that, like you said, if we were treating the people that we're closest to, that we say that we love the most, with respect, with patience, where we blow things off. We don't attack. We don't, yell at or accuse or threaten. We wouldn't do that with our best customers. And so we shouldn't be doing that with anybody. Yep. And that causes you to grow it. You have to become more mature in order to experience that. So it's sound advice. Yes. So lots of great phrases in here. So I encourage people to to listen to this again with pen and paper and make sure that you take notes, because Shep has provided a whole bunch of great ideas already. All right, Shep. So now you mentioned a little bit about that book of yours, Be Amazing or Go Home, and it actually was it was so popular and successful, it was turned into a television show. So tell me a little bit about that and
Sure.
how that
That is a
happened.
crazy story. And the show
Yeah.
is Be Amazing or Go Home, available on Amazon Prime. And if you're a Prime member, you get it for free.
Yeah.
You can go on Roku. You can go on Apple TV, C-Suite TV, a bunch of different places. And it is now, we are now putting episodes. They're not all on there, but the whole first season is on beamazing.tv, which is my YouTube station or channel for that that show. So I walk into a studio. I get called and they want me to come in and check out the studio. And I'm thinking the reason is because they know every once in a while I'll do something on national television through Fox or CNN or wherever, and I'll go down to a different studio. And I thought, well, I heard about this studio. It's a big studio. I guess that's what they want me to come down and check out. So I said, sure. They're gonna, let me go check it out. I walk into the studio and it's like, Be Amazing or Go Home, and my picture, and it's like there's all these graphics. What's this? Well, that's what we want to talk to you about.
Wow.
We would love to do a TV show. It's not so much based on the book, but there is a lot. It's all about being amazing. And they want me to do a couple of interviews, different authors, business people, et cetera, et cetera. So we tried it. We did a pilot. It worked. We did a second one, a third one. Next thing you know, it's like, well, let's do a series. Now it's not a weekly show. There's a chance in the near future it will become a weekly show, but right now it's like every month or so show.
That's funny.
But it's fun to do. It's a beautiful studio, and I'm amazed that they wanted to make this offer to me to do the show. So.
Oh, what a compliment. That's amazing. So what have you learned about showbiz or making movies or your television shows and stuff like that through this?
Making the show is easy. I mean, I've been doing video production work since, I started in the 80s when it cost, more than $1,000 a minute to do a video, which had little, if any, special effects. Now, for a few $100s, you can buy the whole suite and put it on your little, laptop or Mac, and you have basically $200,000 recording studio for like way back then. So it's the production quality it's easy to do today. If you do it right, you just do it right. You can even, I even have in my right on the other side of that wall. And by the way, this is my office. It probably looks more like my home because I got a couple of guitars here and all that. But no, this is my office. Right on the other side of there is my team. But on this back wall behind me, there's a studio, and there's a green screen painted on one wall. So I got the big green screen that I could shoot. I've got a plain wall on another side. I don't know how. 4 cameras are back there, lots of lights. You know how much that whole studio cost? I mean, it costs several thousand, not several $100,000. Okay. Yeah. And by the way, if I wanted to create a great production for you today, I can go get a decent camera. I can get an iPad teleprompter. I can use my iPhone to shoot amazing video. I don't even need a fancy. Actually, this is more expensive than the good cameras that some of us are buying today to make, great high quality, even 4K production. And video. So I know we're getting way off the topic here, but video is a great way to sell yourself. It's a great way to position yourself. So anyway, the studio itself, the show's fun. The key isn't making the show, it's selling the show. And to find sponsors, to find guests who want to appear on unsponsored positions as opposed to just a regular guest. That's the business of it all. Yeah. So that's what I've learned is that shooting the show is easy. We create a great show. Anybody can create the show. Making the show, the best shows don't necessarily become successful.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about the show then. What are you actually doing when you're helping somebody to be amazing or go home? What happens?
So the format is I always have an opening monologue. A lot of that monologue is based on an article that I've recently written. So if you get my weekly newsletter or read my Forbes columns, or maybe there's a section in one of my books, the producer pulls that out and says, this is what we're going to use for the opening monologue. Then we always have 2 guests. Sometimes It could be everything from, I loved it because, you know, you can't really see this, but it's St. Louis hockey. So St. Louis Blues, my St. Louis Blues hockey team won the Stanley Cup last year. And it was fun to have the CEO of the St. Louis Blues on the show. That was great. But recently we had a guy fly in from Orlando that's a health expert. He talks about, you know, longevity, and he says, you know, be healthy, wealthy, and wise. And you're not, if you have wealth without health, you're not wealthy. You know, that was a great message. We had a gentleman, we've had some great guests on. I had a guy from Atlanta, a friend of mine, Dan Thurman, who actually does a handstand in his speech. He talks about being off balance on purpose. He's an author, he's a speaker. And right in the middle of my interview, he says, check this out. And he does a handstand on the desk where we do the interview.
Wow. Wow.
It was amazing.
Wow.
Those are some fun ones. We recently had a guy that's part of, he's a sales franchise. He was on the show. So he came on and talked about, you know, creating your success. He works with a guy named Vern Harnish, Scaling Up. I don't know if you know the Gazelle program. Great guy. So it's just a wide variety of people. We had, that guy. Well, anyway, I can go on and on. Great guests. And then we always have a quote. I like to riff about a famous quote that somebody might have. Sometimes it's Steve Jobs. Sometimes it's Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It's just a wide variety. We have an app or a technology of the show that we like to showcase. We have an Ask Shep section. So it's a lot in like 28 minutes. It's a lot.
Yeah, it sounds packed.
Yeah.
That's amazing. All right. That's very cool. So congratulations on that. So let's segue back here. You know, when you go through the business, you'll have different experiences that will really stand out for you, you know, memorable events. Do you have a great customer experience story, you know, that comes to mind?
Oh, you're setting me up for the cab driver story, aren't you?
So could we hear a little bit of that story, if you don't mind?
Well, if you go to my YouTube channel, which is shep.tv, or go to Shep, I come up with, you can go to ShepTube, like YouTube, sheptube.com, shep.tv. I think it's at the top. It says the famous taxi cab driver. I've been telling that story for years. My favorite version was from like 15 years ago, even though I say it pretty much the same way. So it's a story about a taxi cab driver that picks me up in Dallas, Texas. And he looks like a bum. It's the end of the day, and it's the hottest day of the summer. It was so miserably hot. You can tell this guy was tired and wiped out, and he hadn't shaven in what looked like a week. Well, it turns out the guy just had a thick beard. But I thought the inside of the cab was going to be dirty, but it turns out it's spotlessly clean. The air conditioner's working fine. He has a couple of newspapers for me to read. He's got a little bucket with ice. It's got 2 sodas in it. It's like I'm in a limousine, not a taxi cab. And he even offers to take me to see this fountain that's a famous landmark in Dallas on the way to the airport. The fountain is Las Colinas. It's actually the Mustangs, their horses. And, you know, I figure I'll humor the guy. I'll show him. He was so excited to show me this fountain. And then we get there, and I give him a huge tip. And he says, here's my card. Come back and see me the next time you're back in Dallas. And most people would have just put the card in their pocket or thrown it away. But I didn't for whatever reason. But 4 days later, I get a thank you note from the cab driver. When he says, here's my card, he asked me for mine as well. You know, we exchanged. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've never received a thank you note from a taxi cab driver before. And then every time I go back to Dallas, he would pick me up and take me around until he finally retired. But it just was an amazing example of how you can take a normal, very ordinary job, taxi cab driver, nothing exceptional about that, but he turned it into an extraordinary experience. And he told me after we got together, I knew the average taxi cab driver back when he first started driving was making under $20,000 a year, just under $20,000. And you can verify that because the International Taxi Cab Association has plenty of stats and facts about these things. And he was making more than $100,000 a year as a taxi cab driver.
Wow.
And this was many years ago. And that's not a bad living today.
Yeah.
Okay? But he figured out he didn't ever have to sit around and wait for anybody at the airport because he had appointments. I got lucky. He had just dropped someone off. And as this person was leaving the cab, I'm walking down looking for a taxi, and he waved at me. And that started that relationship. But he said, no, he hardly ever has time to just pick up people like myself because he's back to back to back working all day.
That's
and
amazing.
that, and, not sitting in an airport for 2 hours in line with the rest of the taxi cab drivers.
That is a brilliant story. And really it goes to show, because, a lot of times everybody can create experiences like that, except people tell themselves that they can't. Oh, I'm not creative, or I don't know how to do that, or no one's going to care about what I have to say. And they shoot themselves down before they ever even, take the chance to try and find out. And so I love stories like that because
thanks.
Yeah.
So here's the key to that. Number one is to recognize that what he provided, aside from what every customer wants in a taxi cab, is they want a clean car and a safe ride,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes.
That's standard, right?
Yes.
Now, what can we do to make it better? Well, what is it that other people do in this transportation business? Well, I'm not a limousine driver, but limousine drivers provide newspapers. Why can't I provide a newspaper?
Yeah.
That's exactly how he was thinking, I'm sure. And by the way, I'm going to make this an even clearer example of how any business can do this. So this guy would go to the hotels and ask for leftover newspapers that the guests and maybe they had extras. And that's how he got free newspapers. He said he had a cooler filled with soda in his trunk. He hardly ever had to replace it because most people, even if you offer them the soda, they hardly ever take it. Okay. So he says, I spend a few bucks a week on sodas. That's it. But he gets huge tips, on top of it. But here's what I want everybody to think about. What did this guy do? He looked at what others did. So just look at any business, not a competitor's business, but look at any business that you love to do business with. And it could be everything from Amazon to the grocery store to the favorite inside salesperson you have at a manufacturing company, if it's, a B2B company. What is it that these companies are doing, or what is it that they have that you love about them? And then ask yourself, am I doing that for my customers in my business? And if not, is it something that I could do? So if you're not you may say Amazon's one of my favorite companies. Let's write down everything I love about Amazon. Well, the moment I place my order, I get a confirmation. Then they send me a notice a few hours later that say my item's being shipped. Here's the tracking information so I could track it. Then I get an email with a picture of that item leaned against my door, just to give you an example. And of course, if I have a problem, what's really cool is I go on and I tell them I have a problem. They don't have a phone number. You know why? I give my phone number, and literally about the time I hit enter, that phone rings and I'm now talking to a rep. That's cool. So I may be in the manufacturing business and manufacturing widgets, and I don't have online ordering. I don't have a website that you can place. But there's certain things that Amazon does that why can't I send my clients a notice when their item has shipped with the tracking information? I could simply say, thanks for your order. You should get it in the next 3 to 5 days. But what if I did that one extra step? I'm now adding that level of confidence. So it doesn't matter what business you're in. You can be polar opposite types of businesses. There's something, if you like that other company, there's something they might be doing that you can use in your company. By the way, you can do it on your competition, but then, and if they're doing something that you should be doing too, that's fine. But recognize that all you are is a copycat at that point, a copycat of your competitor, which means you're playing catch up and keep up, not being more forward thinking.
Yes, exactly. If you make all those changes just to do what everybody else is doing, well, you're still equal then.
Yep.
So I love the phrase, adding levels of confidence. I think that's great, and so instead of asking, why can't I, how can I, right?
Yep.
How can I add this next level of confidence for my customer? And that's just great. I love that. So you've traveled around the world. You've been speaking for many, many years. And so I like to ask these questions because it just helps me understand you a little bit more and how you think. So what was one of the coolest adventures you've ever had just in your career traveling around?
Wow. I have gone to so many great places. The first time I was in the Middle East was a great adventure. I met this gentleman, his name's Ahmed, and he called me, he booked me for a speech. And, whenever I have a brand new client that I don't know who they are, but they claim they want to. I try to find, has anybody else ever worked for this person? And oh, you're going to love this guy. He's going to meet you at the airport. He's going to pick you up. He's going to take you to dinner every night. You're going to love this guy. Now, if you love that kind of attention, great. And this was one of the best relationships. I just love this guy. And I'd never been over to the Middle East, and he picked me up and he showed me, actually I may have been over there, but not to, he was in Bahrain and Oman is where his offices are. I went to New Zealand. I had a 5-city tour in 5 different cities in New Zealand, one city after the other, which was great. But before I got there, I went, and because I was going to be doing so much touring, I took my wife. Whenever I can take my wife to some, like if we're going somewhere where she hasn't been, but we went down to the south part of New Zealand, and we spent a few days before the event so I could acclimate to the time zone, because it's basically the other side of the world, practically. And we went, jumping off cliffs on hang gliding and did the bungee thing. And that was quite an adventure.
That is.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And I get to tie it into work. And of course, eventually had to leave there and do 5 cities. But those 5 cities were great because I was with somebody that took me to, I believe that when you go to a place, you can buy a book and see what's in a museum. And there's certain pieces in a museum, certain art in a museum, or certain items you need to see in person. I mean, if you want to see the bones of a dinosaur, it's cool. Looking at a picture is one thing. But if I'm going to go to an art museum, unless it's, the Mona Lisa, which by the way, I don't get it. Have you ever seen the Mona Lisa? Have you been there in the Louvre?
No.
Okay. It's this picture of this woman. How is that like the most famous woman in the world, a piece of art? I get it. It's beautifully done. But anyway, I can look at picture books and see that. I can't get that same feeling from going to the Grand Canyon. I've got to see the Grand Canyon. I've got to.
How do you get yourself to bungee jump?
Well, you tell enough people you're thinking about doing it to where if you came back and you didn't, you'd be embarrassed.
There you go. There you go. You just make yourself accountable. That's funny.
Yeah. So I guess that's part of it. But I mean, these adventures are fun and I love to experience. But to me, to experience these different cities and these countries is about people and food. That's culture to me. I can go to the museums and I can learn a little bit, but I want to talk to people. I want to walk with them, and they can, take me shopping and let's go eat. And I can get to experience the way life is, not just the attractions that are within the country.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I was, I'll tell you that later. So is there,
well, now you've caught our imagination here and our interest.
So is there, who might you say is, one of your top coolest people you ever met? I know you mentioned a couple, but is there anybody else, someone that you met that was maybe a hero for you, or someone that you, was just amazing?
I've met so many cool people. I can go on and on, but in business, I got to interview Horst Schultz a couple of times for my podcast, which is Amazing Business Radio. There's that word amazing again. And Horst Schultz is the first president and co-founder of the Ritz-Carlton hotel chain. He's one of my, it's a customer service icon in our world. So, yes. And interviewed him. Carl Sewell, a very famous car dealership, the Sewell dealerships, well known for the most amazing service. I met the CEOs of great companies. I've had a great opportunity to play music on stage with some amazing musicians that you would recognize. We'll watch one night. You'll be watching the Kennedy Honors, and you see that guy drumming in the band. That's my buddy. I played with him. Next time you go to the Pink concert, look at the drummer. He's great. Pink Floyd from years ago. One of the musicians is a good friend of mine, and I've been on. So I have so much fun in life. By the way, you get a choice. My son, who's a professional musician, says, how is it that you get to hang out? John Oates from Hall & Oates. I called it Hyken and Oates that night. We got to play together. So, and my son says, I'm a professional musician. I live in Nashville. I see these people, yet somehow, how do you get on stage and do this? I go, well, it's not so much that I want to do it. It just happens to be there, and I grab it when it happens. You got to embrace it. And so that's why if you hire me to go to New Zealand, I'm going to go. I'm going to do my job, and I might stay. I don't need to go play golf over there, but I think jumping off the famous bungee jump, the first place that you could ever go for bungee jumping, that's pretty crazy cool.
So what is the belief that drives that? You see an opportunity and you go for it, which is one of the biggest secrets to success that there is, because so many people are afraid of the what ifs. And
you know what I think they're also afraid of? Not just what if they say no. I think they're afraid of what if they say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then what?
And then what? Then I got to deliver. Oh my God. So when I was a little kid, I think I lacked a little bit of confidence. I was never much of an athlete. Today you would say, like, what are you talking about? You play hockey, you bike, you play tennis, golf. Yeah, but back then I was scared. I had very low self-esteem and self-confidence.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I got connected with magic, card tricks type of magic.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I was a quirky kid, an artistic kid, and that was one of my things. I love to do magic and entertain people, not fool them per se, like, hey, I know something that you don't, but I put myself, I remember at 12 years old going to do a birthday party. How nervous was I at 12 years old to do magic for little kids? I was nervous. I signed up for the talent show. I was nervous, and I kept putting myself out there to where I realized that the worst thing, so there's a couple of things. The worst thing that would happen is, so I didn't do that well that day, but I tried really hard, and nobody's going to fault me for that. Number two, I learned, especially with speaking and even a magic show. And I still, to this day, I go up on stage and I'm nervous. I don't think it's stage fright. I think it's, I want to be successful. Am I going to nail it today? Yeah. But nobody knows what's coming out of my mouth next. So if I make a mistake and I point it out, then you know. Yeah. But if I make a mistake and just keep going, you don't know. Yeah. So when I'm on the ice and I take a shot when I'm playing hockey and the goalie blocks it, a lot of my buddies, as soon as they take the shot, they veer off to the left or the right because they finished the play. Now, I'm not saying I do this every time, but my goal is to be aware enough that when I take the shot, I'm going to keep going after the puck in case there's a rebound.
Ooh, there it is. Woo, there it is.
So I don't know. Maybe that's
right. Oh, I love it. Most people veer off to the left or the right. You keep going. Yeah. You took
in business, you take your best shot. Somebody says, you know what, I'm not sure that's for us. And you don't say, okay, thanks. Sorry if I wasted your time. You go, well, can you explain why you feel that way? Yeah. That's following the shot in.
Yes. Following the shot in. Shep, oh my gosh, just one memorable line after another after another.
I'm going to have to listen to this show again because there's a lot of things that I don't normally talk.
Your next book is on my piece of paper where I'm taking notes.
You're bringing it out on me. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Follow the shot in. I mean, that's really powerful because, again, I would say 90% of people, they do not do that. And even people who are really good at what they do finish the play and veer off. Yep. But not you. You follow that shot in, and you were scared when you were. And also, I love that because, a lot of times people will look at you or me right now, just use as an example and say, well, of course, you guys have always been confident, or you've always been, you have all these accolades and everything. So it's different. You don't know what I've been through. But you were nervous and maybe awkward as a kid. I certainly was. I had so much anxiety and worry and fear. I would have never done any of the stuff that I'm doing now. But your past does not determine your future. Yeah. Right? And it doesn't matter how you started. What matters is how you finish. Right. And so you're jumping off mountains with, bungee cords tied to you, and
only because when I come back and they say, oh, how's the bungee jump? I chickened out.
Oh, no, we can't have that. So that's why you'll never hear me say I'm going to bungee jump. but I'm impressed.
I'm going to get you to do it. If we go over there, I'll do it.
No.
Yeah. So I jumped out of a plane. My son, for his high school graduation, said, I want to take a skydiving lesson. Yeah. And I said, well, I'm not going to be a part of that. I don't want to be responsible for your demise. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So my mom, his grandmother, says, I'll give him a skydiving lesson. And we're at dinner one night, and she gives it to him for his graduation dinner. And he said, Grandy, would you want to do it with me? And she was 69 years old at the time. Okay. And she said, yeah, I'll do it with you if your dad'll do it with us too. Oh no! Throw down the gauntlet, you know.
Oh man!
So I said, we're up in the plane, and I got to tell you, that may be one of the scariest things I ever have done in my entire life. And we're out there, and the doors open, and there's several other people on the plane, and everybody's jumping out. And then my son looks at me, and I go, well, you want to go first, go ahead, but I'm not going until mom goes or your grandmother goes. If she goes, I'll go.
Yeah.
And my mom was the first to the door.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Wow. Way to go, Mom. That's amazing. So I would do that. I'd be up for that. I think the thing about the bungee cord, and I don't know why I'm on this, but I'm on it a little bit because I have this motto that if I can't, I must, right? Just any fear, you have to conquer it because your biggest breakthroughs are hidden in the places you don't want to go. The idea for me is that when you bounce, you drop, and then you bounce back up, and then you're just hanging there upside down while they pull you back up. I think that's
actually,
the part.
I don't think they ever pull you back up. I think they drop you down.
They lower you back down?
Yeah, so they ask you, and this is the famous place in I guess it's Queenstown. It's in New Zealand, the southern part. It's the first place that you can go to ever bungee jump. And they ask you how close you want to get to the water. Do you want to touch the water? You know, and they've got it. I mean, they know how much do you weigh. They weigh you 3 times. They weigh you before you leave on the bus, they weigh you when you get off the bus, and then they weigh you when you were getting tied onto your, your legs. Wow. And so I know that they're taking every precaution.
Yes.
And as soon as you drop, you go up. And I thought I was going to hurt my back or my knees were going to get pulled. They go, oh, no, you're going to feel a very gentle tug. Okay, that's it. And I went down and I did a swan dive out. I said, if I'm going out in style. I did the swan dive and jumped off, and you go up, down, and then the boat comes, and your adrenaline is rushing so much that like you can't wait to go back up and do it again. Wow. And then we got to do it again. But whether you do or you don't doesn't matter. It's just you feel like you break through. You said it best, Tim. You said a lot of what you find about yourself are in the places that you don't think you're willing to go to, or something like that. You just shared. That was insightful.
Yeah. Oh, so good. Wow. So, Shep, this has been mesmerizing. I love this. I feel like I'm full of adrenaline already just thinking about the bungee jumping. And
Me too.
And your next book is right here on this sheet of paper. I'm going to have to send it to you because, there's so many powerful insights and strategies. So I've just loved having you on the show. Thank you so much. Any final thoughts for everybody that's listening today?
Well, thanks. I know you talk to a lot of salespeople. The job, like in my world, the job isn't doing the speech. It's getting the speech. It's to recognize, everybody should recognize there's something you're hired to do, but there's something else behind it. It's like, what does he do? He's a professional speaker. He gets up there and so, is that all you do? No. I only speak 50 times a year normally 45, 50 times a year on a stage. Yeah. And they go, what do you do the other 250 or 300 days out of the year? Yeah. I get the speech. And when we understand what drives the success in anything we do, and if it's a customer relationship, if we understand what's going to drive this customer success, if we were to get together a year from now, going back to what we talked about earlier, if we together a year from now, what would have to happen for you to feel that this was the most successful investment you've ever made in a speaker? Know what your success criteria is. If you're talking to a customer and they're unhappy, by the time we get off this call, if tomorrow you reflect back, what would have to happen for you to feel like, I love this company still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same kind of question. There you go. Those are my final thoughts.
Well, that is outstanding. So, Shep Hyken, everybody. Oh my goodness, Shep, this was absolutely wonderful. Thanks so much for being a part of the program today.
Hey man, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So there you have it, everybody. Go to shephyken.com. We'll have the links in the show notes. You can check out his TV show by going to Amazon Prime. We'll have all of that in there as well. So you need to share this episode with your team leaders. Go back, listen to it again, take lots of notes. There's so many golden nuggets in this that it's hard to, I've lost track of how many there are. So make sure you check this out. Apply what you've learned, share it with your customers, and make your life mesmerizing. We'll talk to you soon, everybody. Bye-bye. Hey, Achiever, I got a new book coming out with Dr. Joe Vitale. It's called One Belief Away. Go to onebeliefawaybook.com and find out when it comes out. We'll see you soon. Hey, would you like more free tips on how to be a mesmerizing leader? Then check out mesmerizingleadership.com and also hang out with me on Facebook, facebook.com/Tim Shurr. Thanks so much and make your day a sure success. Hey, it's Tim Shurr. Would you like to learn my best secrets for how to be mesmerizing? Then head over to www.survivingtothriving.me. That's www.survivingtothriving.me. I'll see you there.